Welcome back to main title animation, American Soldier. This is frame 3, scene 3. For this animation, we're going to look at animating this style frame with the two soldiers and the text. Should be interesting. Let's dive in. The first thing I'm exploring here is I'm picking back up on the transition from the last scene 2 animation. Like I mentioned, this is Universe Unifilm transition. It's a pretty cool effect. All I'm doing here is just playing with the parameters as I transition out of frame 2 into frame 3. Playing around with some different presets as well. Also playing with the blend modes. Cool, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Gonna move on to animating the actual scene. Starting by organizing slightly and renaming some of these layers. So the reason I've added motion tile to this image is I thought about creating a film flutter effect where the image flutters vertically like an old film projector. That's also why I added this wiggle expression. So in the expression, number 2 is the frequency and the 1000 value is the amplitude, how much it'll move, how many pixels it'll move on the y-axis. This particular effect did not work for me, but I left this in here so that you could see the process I go through of trial and error, trying things to see what works, what doesn't work, and then moving forward from there. What I'm doing here is just adding markers to my composition so that I know where the sound hits are. I thought it might be interesting to make the film flutter effect happen on the sound hits And then on the moments in between, go back to just a normal footage that's not shaky. So you can see there the effect of what I'm trying to accomplish. That's looks like a film projector losing the grip on the sprockets. Here I brought a piece of ink footage into the scene, set the transfer mode to screen, and then multiply. And that's looking pretty cool. Adding a 3D camera, making the layers 3D, except for the adjustment layer, the color correction layer. There's no reason for it to be 3D. Setting keyframes for position and Z rotation. This way I could start zoomed in slightly on the image, pull out, and as the camera pulls out, I'll also do a slight rotation to make the scene a little more dynamic. I'm scaling up the footage slightly so that it fills the screen. If things are moving too quickly for you, you can always play this back at half speed. And half speed is the speed that this was truly recorded at. Half speed is real speed. Here I'm playing with the ink footage that's up in the top right corner of the frame. This was in the style frame design. Again, parenting the texture of the typography to the alpha of the typography, and I'm repositioning the typography again. The typography worked really well in the style frame, but as the animation motion start to play out, I quickly realized that the current position for the type isn't working. I'm gonna try and use a title from an article. I'm gonna make this newspaper headline look like it's the top of a page for our image. So the image will sit just below this article. Essentially, I'm designing as I'm animating. The style frame is nice because it gives me a base of what I need to follow. But I have the option of interpreting the design and making it work. So this particular camera motion is a little too slow for me. So I had an ease in on the camera and drag that ease out. So the camera will pull away quickly from the top newspaper headline into the image. Here I've added a null, a 3D null to the scene, and I've attached the camera to that null. And what this does is the null can have constant motion applied to it, like constant Z rotation. And therefore the camera can do its own animation, but because it's parented to the null, there's a slight secondary motion that always runs through the scene, and that's supplied by the null. I'm changing the headline to a black and white image to better match the scene. And here I'm just playing with the black and white effect. Also playing with curves. Fine-tuning the positioning of the camera. I don't have a lot of room to work with the frame here, as the headline's pretty small, as you can see on the left side there, and as well as the top. So I have to be very conscious of what the camera is seeing. I'm gonna go ahead and apply a motion tile to the headline, expand the output, and click on compositing options and add, and that recognizes the mask. So now the output extends past the mask. You can see that that's a little blue icon next to the motion tile. It's a new feature in the last couple of versions of After Effects. So what I'm doing here is separating the silhouetted soldier image, and I'm masking it. Adding a feather. I'm going to duplicate this image, and I'm going to offset this second duplicate so that the soldiers can have a little bit of parallax between them. I'm going to offset it, so what this will do is I can transition in the second soldier, so not both soldiers will be on screen at the same time, and this will just give a little more interesting motion to the frame. As you can see there, see the second soldier animates in with the ink footage. I think the type will be more interesting if it's placed more vertically further down the frame. So in order for it to still be red, I have to drop the opacity of the second soldier. Now for the second half of this scene, I'm going to try and add this image. It's a pretty cool image. Looks like some soldiers running in maybe like a field or a rice field. And this image, I want to time this image especially with the music. I want things to happen on each of these beats. So what I'm doing here is playing with the position and scale and hold keyframes. So each beat, the image essentially moves. I love this ink footage. It's probably one of my favorite pieces of footage. The ink sprays left to right, right to left across the screen. It's not your typical ink drop footage where the drop just happens in the middle of the frame and spreads outward. So you can see here, laying it over as an overlay mode on this image looks really interesting. I'll try and drop this old paper texture over, set to overlay. So again, this is bringing more texture into the scene. That one didn't quite work for me, so I'll try this white texture. Yeah, I'm digging that. I think it might be more interesting to reveal the second soldier with a paint texture instead of an ink texture. So I'll bring in this reveal, see how it looks. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Going to pre-comp the text, make it 3D, turn on the motion blur, and then Luma matte this title so that it comes on as the ink reveals it. Here I'm just fine-tuning the actual hit in the music and then adjusting my layers to match closer. Again, I'm trying the twitch effect in this scene, the bad film gate preset. As a transitional element. If you followed the first two scene animations, you can tell that I really want to use the twitch effect. That seems to work. Add another adjustment layer. And to this, I'm adding the misfire effect from Universe. I love old film effects, and I was trying to somehow incorporate that into some of this animation. Here I'm trying a rack focus effect. Those seem to work well in the first two scenes. So here I know I want one final thing to happen in this scene So bring in this layer of a company posing for a photograph, make it 3D. Rotate it slightly on the Z-axis. And animate it as well on the position, mostly on the X-axis. I'm going to bring in this newspaper headline that says "War with Germany," and I'm going to create something I've seen in old videos where one image is just a long dissolve. The plugin I'm working with right now is called Pixel Detailer. It's a plugin I got off AEScripts, and it's a plugin that helps to bring back clarity to imagery that's really fuzzy, grainy, out of focus. Sometimes it does wonders, other times it doesn't seem to do too much, but it seemed to help a little with this image. So again, I'm going to move the company image side to side, and then the newspaper headline image, I'll just do a scale, a push in on that image, and I'll cross dissolve between the two. Trimming the layers underneath these images that aren't needed. So as I cross dissolve, things pop through that I don't want to see. Also helps to tidy up the scene file. So now we clearly see that we have scene 1, 2, and 3 inside this animation. So I'm just playing with the opacity, the dissolve, and I'm adding a curves effect to the company photo to bring in some contrast. Also adding curves to the newspaper headline to bring more contrast. The S curve is very popular for adding contrast to any imagery. Here's where the scale up of the headline happens, as well as repositioning the position just slightly as the image scales up. Just doing some very subtle final tweaks with the position and scale. And that's looking pretty cool. Let's take a look at all three scenes together.